Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where frontline sales leaders teach you how to build and scale an outbound sales team. Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by a Senior Manager of Sales Enablement, Meganne Brezina. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Collin. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you because we're going on a topic that we've kind of broached lightly before, but we're going to go deep on sales kickoffs today. So I always love an opportunity to get the sales ops and sales enablement folks on here because, we can spend all day talking about how to, write better emails, how to, do better cold calls, which Meganne said she's an expert cold caller.
Oh, no.
Being, full-time in sales enablement, obviously you're making tons of sales calls or cold calls.
Right. All day, every day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll hold up my sarcasm sign.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited to dive in because and typically these are really powerful pieces that can be done or that are done in very large companies. But what I'm hoping we can take away is if you're a sales leader at a smaller organization, some tips on if you don't have the, $1 million budget that Meganne might be working with, but some ways that you pull out some of the great things. I don't know she gave me a funny face, so maybe it's not $1 million.
I wish it was $1 million budget. I could do a lot with that, but we are very effective in the way that we spend the money at Emarsys. I can tell you that.
That's fair. I spent the weekend with a friend of mine who's she was an enterprise rep for VMware, and when they got everybody together, it was 10,000 reps.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible! That must have been a lot of energy in that room.
It's crazy. Now she's over at Palo Alto Networks and killing it over there. But yeah, they're still getting like thousands of people together for their sales kickoffs.
Amazing.
So I'm curious, what's the relative size and scale of the team over at Emarsys in terms of like the sales kickoff?
Sure, absolutely. So we have typically between, call it 210 and 225 attending our kickoffs, which is roughly 25% of our workforce.
Okay, awesome. And I'm curious, why even do a sales kickoff in the first place? Because I imagine maybe we're not talking $1 million budget, but we're still not talking free.
Correct. Yes, there is a significant investment that happens with sales kickoff. And the way we've really approached it in the past, Collin, is three-pronged, right? So we're talking about a morale boost. I think that's a really important thing in sales. We need our people to be motivated and ready to kill it in the year to come. We look at it as an opportunity to network internally. At Emarsys, we have 16 offices around the world, and there's not an opportunity for our sales teams to be in the same room every day. So we really look at this as an opportunity for them to get to know people perhaps outside of their team, outside of their office. And we've really seen a lot of cross-collaboration with that globally, especially when we are tackling some larger enterprise brands. We also look at sales kickoff as a vehicle to deliver an org-wide change, right? So that could be new sales methodology, that could be launching new messaging, new strategy in the product, anything that you can, that you need to roll out to multiple teams in one location. That's another way that you can look at kickoff. We also use it as an opportunity to celebrate our successes in the past year. And perhaps most importantly, we use it to set the tone for the year to come.
Right on. That's awesome. And it's such especially when you get to such a large scale, bringing together, 200 different reps, if you're trying to get them all to move in the same direction, so much easier to just get them all in the same room. There's so many things that you can share, when you're face to face that are so much harder when it's like, here's an email that we sent out to 225 people.
That's right. Yeah, the acceleration and again, the energy and that morale boost and taking pride in one's organization, I think you can really feel when you have everybody gathered in one room.
So what size of company do you need to be for it to make sense to do a sales kickoff?
Collin, I don't know that there is a magic number, but I do think that sales kickoff becomes necessary when you need to rally a group of people around a single goal. Or if you've determined that you're experiencing enough growing pains and rapid growth that you really need to get everybody together to realign, to refocus, and making sure that everybody's shooting toward that same goal. Sometimes your leaders too can be looking for opportunities to further align if you're establishing a new department or new initiative, it's important to get everybody together to make it happen. The other factor that's important when considering a sales kickoff, whether you have 10, 100, or 10,000, is that question of budget, because it's not cheap. There's also an opportunity cost when you're taking your salespeople out of their day-to-day prospecting and closing, that you have to be cognizant that that is going to impact your pipeline. So how much are you going to invest without losing your shirt, right? So I think we tend to think of kickoffs as those huge multi-million-dollar events, but the idea of a kickoff, when you're bringing people together around that goal, it can be done effectively without that multi-million-dollar budget. I've seen companies do remote kickoffs where, in the spirit of saving money from travel, you're doing either a leadership roadshow, right, where your leaders are traveling across the globe. I've seen it where you're dialing in everybody via Zoom, WebEx, what have you, which granted is quite tricky because the energy is not quite as palpable as it is when you're all sitting in a room in a certain location, but it can be done effectively. But I think the key is really taking people out of their normal day-to-day. So if you are an organization where you have one office, you don't have remote employees, don't do your kickoff in the office. Make it fun. Take them to a local park, have an outdoor picnic all day while you're launching your new messaging or whatever. If you have remote people, get the people who are still in the office out of the office and take them to a remote location. I think that the creative juices start flowing when you're taking people out of their norm.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of research to support that. Just the choice of the location is going to dictate people's attitude towards the event.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. At Emarsys, given that we're such an international company, we tend to do some pretty cool locations, like going to Vienna or Budapest or Madrid. We really try to spice it up and try to complement where our offices are located too.
Right on. And I think you said, as a special thank you to anybody that's listening, if they want to join your next sales kickoff, you'll fly them out for free?
Absolutely. If they can contribute to our budget and help us with that, we'd be more than happy to invite them to our kickoff.
Sarcasm sign again. Nice. So aside from unwanted guests that apparently you don't want and won't pay to fly out, who else is invited to these things?
Absolutely. So our core audience is our new business team, so our hunters, right? And our what we call client success team, which is our existing business team. In addition to that, we also want our C-suite there. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later, Collin, but having their buy-in for an event like this is just so critical and so pivotal to the success of the event. So you definitely want them there. We want our product team present, especially in the MarTech space. Our product is so critical to what we do that we need them there to really help us with the enablement of the product sessions. We also like to have leadership from our professional services, from our client support, any of our customer service leaders. We want them there as well. Depending on the agenda, I think it can be valuable to have your internal sales team, and if not the team, the leaders there. Again, entirely dependent on the agenda, but that way everybody's singing the same song.
Cool. And so, speaking of songs, what are the things that we really need to nail? It's a big event. Whether or not you're spending a lot of financial resources or just, your own time, it's a huge investment, right? No matter what way you look at it. So what are the key things that you've really got to nail?
Definitely. First and foremost is leadership support. And that starts at the top with your C-suite, but it also goes as far down as your frontline managers who are actually managing those individual contributors. If you do not have buy-in for those individuals, your event will not be successful. I don't care how much money you've spent. I don't care where you have it. I don't care how strong of an agenda you have. If you do not have their buy-in, you have nothing. So that, first and foremost, is the most critical thing to nail with the event. Secondly, the agenda needs to be top-notch. And the agenda is really that fabric that you need to weave through the entire event, both before the event, during the event, and after. So when you're setting that really strong agenda, whatever your priorities are for the year, your pre-work, which you should be assigning out far in advance of the event, maybe not far in advance, but at least a couple of weeks. In that pre-work, you're setting expectations for the event, you're generating interest and excitement, you are giving them almost a sneak peek of things to come, and you will be giving them in the agenda the various topics and the goals that your company is focused on. But there's also a very good tip to have here, and that is to have an element of surprise in your agenda. Woo, mind blown, right? We have found it to be really exciting to have something that nobody knows except for the enablement team and maybe a handful of others if you need some help actually executing this element of surprise. But it could be something like releasing the location of the kickoff at the very last minute, or keeping it as secret as possible for as long as you can. Maybe having some creative swag or distributing special prizes during the event. Surprise awards, different evening activities at surprise locations, but having that element of the unknown, I think, can really infuse a lot of energy in an event.
That's fair, because I imagine these things can turn quite monotonous, especially if you're, I mean, at 210 reps, it's a big company, but it's not like we're talking 10,000 reps.
Totally, yes.
Where you just go to the same hotel in Vegas every year over and over again. So at least, so you have quite a bit more sort of leeway because you're not dealing with such a mass of people. I mean, especially
That's a great point.
You extrapolate it out, like at a smaller team, you almost have even more freedom, more creativity, because you could do this in the park, you know, and then
that's right.
Get a team of 5, you know, you could spend a couple $100 and have this like really big wow moment. And that's a fairly low cost way because you're in a friggin' park.
Exactly. I'm trying to accommodate all budgets here, Collin, right?
Totally. I imagine you guys don't do yours in a park.
No, typically not. No, what we have had good success with in the past, in those various European cities, we'll book out a hotel that has the conference facilities that is centrally located. As part of our agenda, we like to do things that complement the local culture. So I remember one year doing a scavenger hunt to our final destination where we had appetizers and drinks for everybody, that kind of thing. So when you look at that agenda, that element of surprise is really important. I also think that having unique sessions during your kickoff is critical. So if you think about maybe instead of having people do a workshop on prospecting and cold calling, but doing something fun like an improv session, teaching them how to think on their feet, teaching them how to take a skill that you wouldn't maybe necessarily rattle off as the most important skill in sales, but it's a skill that's important nonetheless. When you're presenting or speaking on a podcast, you have to think on your feet a little bit, right?
That's fair. So talk to me about, so you've done stand-up classes at kickoffs. Talk to me about some other cool things you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. So speed dating sessions is a fun one. So now I've never been to speed dating, but I hear that when you speed date, you're in a room and you're moving around and networking. And in the same thread of using the improv and the stand-up to getting people to think on their feet, doing like a speed dating objection handling, where you have a rep who is prepared with an objection, and then the opposing rep has to respond to that quickly and then move on.
See, I thought you were actually talking about speed dating at this.
Oh, like internal networking in a different kind of way?
Yeah. Let's.
Well, I'm sure that happens outside of the company-sponsored agenda. But when we're talking company-sponsored agenda, no, we don't necessarily promote that. But from an objection handling perspective, yes, that can be a fun topic to do, just to get people thinking of a topic that they've been over 1 million times in a different way. We like to do a lot of hands-on workshops, especially when it comes to product. So learning how to do a 5-click demo path in a workshop where you have support from your solutions folks, your product folks, something that's very hands-on. In our most recent kickoff, we actually did a messaging certification, which was quite successful because we didn't do it in the normal way of you're with all your people from your same team giving the same message over and over. Instead, we mixed our teams from across different offices, from across different teams. So I could have a new biz rep from Indianapolis with an existing client success manager from Beijing, with a solutions consultant from London, and then a leader from France. and you're all together and you're giving that message, but because you're coming from different departments, because you're coming from different cultures, that messaging has some local nuance to it. And I think it's important for teams to hear what their colleagues are doing in other places.
That's really cool. And it's sort of like, it's that opportunity to create the little serendipity in between all the people attending. Nice. Cause it's I imagine when you're looking at the agenda, it's like there's elements of content that you need to sort of nail, right? Like that's why we're bringing everybody together. You got your surprise elements, you got your, your fun pieces, but it's got to be like anytime you get people together, right? There's got to be the content, there's got to be the fun and networking. And I feel like you get salespeople together, and maybe this is just myself, but like it tends to be more fun. It tends to be like, well, all right, everybody, let's hit the booze. So how do you, how do you make that mix so that it's not just people trying to like drinking all day?
Yes.
And
yes, I'm glad that you brought that up, Collin, because I think you're right. I think there are different perspectives on what a sales kickoff should be. And I think the way that we've really navigated that at Emarsys is that our team, our enablement team, our leadership team, every year we have to make a decision. And it's either we work hard or we play hard, but you cannot have both. You can work hard and play a little bit, or you can play hard and work a little bit.
That one.
You can't have, well, at Emarsys, that's not how we feel. But truly, you can't have both because you're going to burn out on either side, right? If you're trying to do both. So you have to make a decision as a team, how you're going to position your agenda and your activities and what the vibe of that event is going to be. At Emarsys, we tend to do the work hard, play a little bit. I think any of my team who would be listening to this, for those folks that do tend to play hard, find that they struggle with the work hard the next day. So we really do try to keep our agenda focused and have the manager set that expectation that this is a work environment and it's expected that you rise above.
That's fair. Yeah, I've noticed some events will have like, here's the night, right? Like we're doing this for a couple of days or sometimes a little bit longer, but like this is the night that we're all going to go crazy, and then here's the night that we're going to work, so that people know they've got that outlet. It's not just going to be sort of work. Is that something similar to how you guys work, how you work over there?
Definitely. So our kickoff historically has been about 2.5 days. And that first evening, and I should back up too, that during the day, we're sprinkling various networking opportunities with coffee breaks and lunch and that kind of thing. But in the evening, that first night, we try to do something that complements the local culture, the local social scene, so that people who are traveling in can get a flavor and a feel for what that city offers. So I mentioned earlier about in Madrid, we did a scavenger hunt. So the team had to find different things around the city to ultimately end up at our destination, which was a surprise, which was really fun. In other cities, we've taken like a boat cruise at night. So you can see the various things around town while still networking with your global colleagues. But that second night, we always reserve for our awards dinner, party, dancing, let loose, music, that kind of thing.
Late night speed dating.
Right. Yes. The unsponsored company speed dating. Yes. Yeah. But we typically save that night for awards presentations and that kind of thing, and provide people with that forum that you can let loose. We're going to close it down at midnight, but you can have some fun before that.
Yeah. And nothing too early the next morning.
We do start our agenda 30 minutes later, but that is it.
30 minutes to account for the hangover.
Yes.
Lots of sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just because everybody knows Meganne's going to be just a disaster that morning anyway. And
100%. Yes.
Cool. So walk me through your agenda. So day one, you mentioned in the evening, you do something local. What does it look like here?
Yeah, during the day. So day one, we want tons of energy. We really want things to be kicking off at an exciting note. You've got people from around the world gathered in one place. So we do a lot on the main stage that first day. Our C-suite speakers, any introductions that we need to make in terms of, for example, a sales methodology. We're not going to dive deep on a sales methodology during the kickoff. It's a platform to say, here's our theme for the year. We are really excited to announce whatever it is, value selling, challenger, whatever methodology it is. that we are here to introduce that. And throughout the year, we can carry that theme. But we really use that first day to infuse energy, to get people excited and hyped up for what is to come from a global perspective. And then, the evening, we do that casual networking. And then in day 2, we focus more on the breakout sessions. So things that are a bit more focused content, either specific to role or specific to theme, and really drilling down into those concepts that we introduced in the first day. And then that second night, of course, is that awards dinner, the party, top performers, recognition, that kind of thing. One thing that we have found successful before I get into day 3 is to invite our customers to attend kickoff. Not the whole thing, but some elements of it, because I think our teams get especially excited when they can hear about how our team's efforts have impacted one of our customers. We did that last year in Vienna, and it was a resounding success, if I might be so bold to say. I think people really appreciated hearing from our customers. All too often, we just hear from ourselves, right? All the internal stuff. Mm-hmm. But to hear it from a customer, I think, is very motivating for our people. And then on the last day, on day 3, we found that that's a good half-day agenda, not a full day, given that they've had some fun the night before. But this is a great opportunity for last-minute business updates, to have a guest speaker, wrap up with the C-suite. But in my mind, Collin, the best thing about day 3 is setting the tone for the year to come. They've had 2 full days of packed agenda. They've been inundated, baptism by fire, drinking from the fire hose, whatever you want to call it, with content. And that last day or the last session should really be all about what is the action that we need them to take after kickoff.
Okay, I gotcha. So you kind of start off with, here's all the stuff we want you to learn. This is the broad sort of sweeping changes, rah, rah, rah. Day 2 is quite a bit more tactical. We're going to break out and get into things specific to your kind of core group. And then day 3, we're going to bring it back and say, okay, this is what we want you to be thinking about moving forward.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Rah, rah, rah.
Rah, 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 go and sell. Yes.
That was my best cheerleader.
I like it. Right on.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously this is a huge endeavor. You're bringing 200 and some odd people from all around the world. Mm-hmm. What's the impact that you've seen this have?
Well, that's a tricky question, Collin. So here's a little, maybe well-known secret in the sales enablement world is that it's difficult to quantify. Okay. Same can be said about sales kickoff. But what I can tell you is that you're going to have a lot of influence on revenue numbers based on how your event went. So for example, in kickoff, we have found, especially with us, that global cross-collaboration piece is really critical. And we find that teams, for example, who are prospecting into a beauty brand in England, that English company also has an American presence. So our English team and our American team can work together to triangulate that particular prospect in a much more effective manner than that English team trying to prospect into the American market, right? So when we have kickoff and we have the opportunity for our teams to get together and meet, they're able to execute more seamlessly across their sales strategy with different brands. We also see the return in a stronger focus. We know that our teams come out of kickoff knowing exactly what the priorities are for that year. Sometimes it takes some reminding throughout the year to remind them what's happening since kickoff. But they do come out of kickoff with a very strong focus. And the most important thing coming out of kickoff is that we want them to have the energy and the momentum to carry them through to have a killer first quarter, a great second quarter, and to carry them through the year. I think from a more data-driven perspective, being in lockstep with your operations team and identifying things that are coming out of kickoff. So I'll go back to that example of the sales methodology. If you're launching a sales methodology, you need to make sure that your CRM instance is up to speed with that sales methodology, so that you can pull reporting immediately coming out of kickoff to drive that reinforcement and to show people like your CFO and other stakeholders internally the value that you were able to drive with that kickoff. It shouldn't happen weeks and quarters after kickoff. That should be happening immediately after kickoff so that you can show the progression throughout the year of the influence that your event had.
Very cool. And it's not just about the influence, this one sort of point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's you're trying to really set up for the year. So how do you maintain that? How do you keep the energy alive all year?
That's a great question, Collin. This is something that I'm very passionate about, and that's really one of my core focuses for this year. First and foremost, I think determining what your theme is for your kickoff. Mm-hmm. You're not just determining that for an event that lasts 48 hours. What you're really doing is determining a theme for your entire year. So enough can't be said about figuring out exactly what that theme should be. Once you have that established, I think there are a few tactical things that you can do throughout the year. We have found great success in using a mobile app during our kickoff, and we've done a great job, and our teams are amazing at contributing content to that app during the event. But where we have a missed opportunity is leveraging that mobile app throughout the year to not only give teams updates on how they're doing with the sales methodology progression, for example, but to also celebrate successes. How about Carol in the Hong Kong office who totally nailed this renewal and brought in X amount of dollars for Emarsys? She needs to be celebrated. What about a different office who did a volunteer group? That needs to be celebrated. Like, you need to keep all of that in the mobile app during the year, and to keep it something that's they're looking at like they would an Instagram or a Facebook or one of their other channels that they're currently using. We like to keep our kickoff themes alive and well during monthly enablement calls. That's something that we've started this year. And it doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out process, right? I think keeping a theme of kickoff alive can be done as simply as having a hashtag on your PowerPoint presentations with your theme. It could be arming your managers weekly, monthly, quarterly with a stat or a report or a story or an image, something that is kickoff related that they can drop into their one-on-one conversations, that they can drop into their team meetings. Anything to help keep that theme alive will be of benefit.
And ideally, this is sort of wrapping around the sort of core theme of the whole company, not just something specific to sales.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
Yeah, if anybody's like reading, I think Scaling Up is the book that I'm thinking of, but the one before that, the better one is, I think it's called Rockefeller Habits, or anything about OKRs, or anything about, how to build and scale a business. They're not the best, air quotes, sales books, but if you are selling to executives, I found them to be some of the best books that I read that helped me get inside the head of an executive. And at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is rally a whole bunch of people in the same direction. And so what you're saying is the sales kickoff is another.
It's a microcosm of that same theory. Mm-hmm. It's exactly it. That's exactly it. And if you do any type of QBR, or if you do any H1 review and H2 look forward, it's another great opportunity to drive home your theme, give a progress check on, how far the business has come since January, February, whenever it is that you're running your kickoff.
Cool. QBR, you're an H2 person, aren't you? H1, H2.
Yes.
What the hell? This is the second time I've heard H1, H2 in August. And I swear, I think you were the first person to ever say H1 in front of me.
Wow, that's an honor. Awesome.
I don't know. I have friends that have worked in huge companies and small companies, all on the sales side. I've never heard H1, H2 until August 2019.
Wow, what a life-changing month for you, Collin. Yes.
I feel like I've been living under a rock.
Well, welcome to the dark side.
What does H2 mean?
Well, H2, in the way that we look at it, is Q3, that would be quarter 3, and Q4, whereas H1 would be Q1 and Q2. So it's the first half of the year. Yeah, first half of the year is H1. Second half of the year is H2.
You're saying there's 2 quarters and a half? This is what you're telling me?
That is correct.
I'm going to have to write this down.
Mind blowing. And now you can drop the term with all the cool kids. It's awesome.
You betcha. I'm talking to my wife about H1, H2. She'll be like, talk about cars or something? Cool. And so since we're on the subject of H2, you mentioned this is something you can leverage in your quarterly business reviews, or do you do another like mini kickoff for this H2?
It's something that we're talking about for 2020. I'll be candid and say it's something that we haven't done yet, but in the spirit of trying to pull that theme of kickoff through the year, I think it's the next step in our progression as a company.
Mm-hmm.
But we do QBRs religiously here. We find them to be very beneficial. The QBRs are only for leadership, but we also do calls with our individual contributing teams. And that's another opportunity to drive your theory home while you're also planning for the next year's kickoff at the same time.
Cool. I mean, especially when you're dealing with such large companies, anything you can do to bring together the alignment, it's mm-hmm. easier when you're, 4 or 5 people sitting in a room around a desk and you have a weekly meeting and everybody generally has a pretty good idea of what's going on. But as that sort of scales up and as you jump from 4 to 10 to,
of course,
8 to 200, there are different things that you need to do at each different level to really keep mm-hmm. everybody on the same track.
Mm-hmm.
And so
exactly.
I'm glad you were here to share how you handle your sales kickoffs and in the H1, H2. Feel like I learned a ton.
Well, good. I'm glad. Thank you for the opportunity.
For sure. I had a couple more questions and then I'm going to just be blown away by your cold calling excellence here.
Oh boy.
You're nervous. So I'm really building up for you. I'm a kind and supporting person.
You are, Collin. Yes. Thank you.
Try not to laugh too hard when you say that. All right. So moving to our last couple questions here. How do you get people to reply to your emails?
I'm going to spin this and say it from the point of view from a person who receives a lot of prospecting emails. I think the key here is to personalize. People that ask for my time in an initial communication don't get a response from me. I need to have value provided to me first to prove that it's worth my time and that you have earned the right to spend time on my calendar. And I think that being pleasantly persistent can also pay off. I like when people leave me voicemails. I really do, because then I know the name and the company and I can understand who you are when you call me the next time or you send me an email.
So 2 comments on this. One, I totally agree. So we started this Outbound Labs division at the beginning of this year, end of last year. Mm-hmm. And we've been running 20 different experiments every month. And we try and let them run for 4 weeks. And yeah, it's been building and building and building. And one of the things that we've learned is that leading off with that direct ask is a very ineffective way of starting a conversation. Mm-hmm. It used to be
it's evolved.
A novel, but now going with a softer ask is actually paying dividends. Mm-hmm. So I have a story about one of our SDRs turned to AE. He hunted this huge opportunity, very large company. I don't want to jinx it because it's not closed and don't want to call it out, but I will give him props because on the call sheet, it was the CMO admitted, she's like, I appreciate your persistence. I understand you've been having a little bit of a one-sided conversation with my inbox.
Oh my goodness.
My voicemail. And she's like, and the timing wasn't right then, but it is now. And that's why we're talking.
Isn't that the truth? Collin, I look at all of our accounts, assuming that they're in the ideal client profile, of course, mm-hmm. that they are all opportunities. They just might not be an opportunity right now. And so being pleasantly persistent and having a strategic outreach will pay dividends if you're patient enough to realize it.
100%. So how do you handle the brush off on a cold call?
Keep going. I was in outside sales at one point. It was more of a gatherer type of approach. But one thing that I learned there is that when you're feeling discouraged and you're feeling like it's all personal, right? Get away from your desk, go for a walk, 10 minutes, come back with a renewed sense of mind. Someone will pick up that phone. And then when they do, you'll be ready. Right on. Love it. And what do you do when you need to, hopefully don't have to, but occasionally have to push at the end of a quarter? Sure. So from an enablement perspective, we're cheerleaders. We are here to make sure the teams have all of the tools and the resources that they need to be successful. So we should be motivating the teams to stay focused, to celebrate their wins when they come in, and to keep that vibe really positive and forward moving, especially when you're coming up against that quarter end crunch. Love it. I wish I had some really cool music for this next segment that I'm gonna. Oh, you're building it up so much. Cold call zone. You should definitely have a theme like that. It would really, really amp it up. I like it. I wonder if we could steal the music from Fear Factor. I'm sure they wouldn't notice. Contestants do that. We can get Joe Rogan to queue up this next segment. Yes.
Yeah. Welcome to
Yeah.
Fear Factor.
Let's
Cold
do
call
it.
me. All right. You ready, Megan?
I'm going to do my best, Collin. Yes.
Okay. This is a phone. It's going to ring and then you're going to go. Okay.
Well, I have to give you the context, do I
That's
not?
right. That's right. Let's hear it.
Yes.
I've got it listed out here, but people probably want to know.
Probably. It would help you and me. So, Collin, you are going to be a CMO at an e-commerce company, and I'm calling you today to secure time on your calendar.
Perfect. All right. You ready?
I was born ready.
Love it. Phone. Ring, ring. Hey, this is Collin.
Hi, Collin. This is Meganne Brezina calling with Emarsys. Did I catch you at a good time?
No, I'm actually just going into a meeting.
Oh, you are? Well, I promise to make this very quick. The reason for my call today is that I had an experience with your brand that I wanted to share with you. And being an e-commerce marketer, I know that you have challenges in your day, all day, every day. But what I've learned is that your current email platform should not be one of those challenges. And I suspect that the experience I had is rooted in that. And at Emarsys, we believe that marketers shouldn't have to adapt to their software. We believe that the software should be adapting to you and your industry needs. So we provide you with an industry-specific solution that gives you and your team the ability to move away from concepts and into execution rapidly. I'm talking days and weeks and not months and quarters. And I'd really like to give you an opportunity to see our Impact Ready platform. Are you free Thursday at 2?
Sounds good to me.
Nailed it.
Right on. Good work, Megan. As somebody who's done effectively 2 cold calls in the last hour, I think you did a great job.
Well, thanks. And I tell you, it's a lot easier to coach people to do it than to actually do it yourself. So props to all my salespeople who practice this day in and day out.
Build a little empathy for people.
That's right.
Podcast episode at a time.
I like it, Collin. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some things about sales kickoffs. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. If anybody has questions for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
LinkedIn, hands down. Just remember it's spelled Meganne. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Cool. And I'm going to do a quick Google here, and I'm going to throw a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Megan. And we'll see you all next week. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye, Collin.